Hi friends. So I know that you've probably heard me speaking about various issues in relation to animal agriculture and the planet, and the climate crisis and the eco disaster, the ecocide that's happening. I have mentioned Seaspiracy, which is a documentary that is coming up in the future. I'm not sure when they will release it, but it's by the same people who made Cowspiracy, the sustainability secret. Cowspiracy, the sustainability secret. And that was a really good documentary about the effect of the animal agriculture industry, how it negatively impacts the planet, majorly impacts it. One of the greatest drivers of the sixth mass extinction and all of that. I won't go through what that's about because I want to talk about the fishing industry, which would not exist if we were vegan. And I wanted to talk about some of the effects of the fishing industry. And they have some amazing statistics about the fishing industry and how it is impacting the oceans. And I'd like you to stick with me as I go through some of them, because I think we all need to know this if we're consuming animal products, which a lot of us are. And I was once one of those people, so there's no blame placed here, but it's something that I think we're going to have to get our head around. The consumption of aquatic animals, who are sentient, by the way, is something that isn't really talked about much. And people think that it's okay that animals are swimming out in the ocean, so that's okay if I eat them because they're not in cages and stuff. Well, there's a lot of aquatic animals that are in cages, but it really doesn't matter whether they are or they aren't. They're still sentient, and in the end they're killed. And usually when they're in these big cages, they keep them so close together that basically they call it animal welfare as long as animals aren't dying, because they're so shoved into these cages that they're not stressed to death, and that they're not diseased to death, basically. That's what they consider animal welfare for these fishing, these large industrialized farmed, sort of cages, that they call aquaculture. That's a very sweet name for something that's really torturous and would be considered torture if it was applied to humans. But there you go, they're always using euphemisms when it comes to animal agriculture, so we don't have to think about what we're doing. So anyway, here's something from Seaspiracy, and I might see if I can show you some of these images, but it's from their Instagram account. 6 out of 7 sea turtles species are vulnerable or endangered, largely due to bycatch. Bycatch is in quotes. I'm putting it in quotes. And it says in the information section of this particular image, sea turtles are facing many threats to their survival caused by human activity, from habitat loss to hunting to pollution, but perhaps the biggest obstacle they face is being killed as bycatch from the fishing and shrimping industries. Annually, hundreds of thousands of marine turtles are caught globally in trawlers, long line hooks, and in fishing nets. In 2000 alone, an estimated 200,000 loggerhead turtles and 50,000 leatherbacks were killed in longline fisheries. So that's something we don't hear, is it, about the fishing industry. It's interesting to read people's comments sometimes in this. Another one here is fishless oceans by 2048. Scientists predict that by 2048, all wild fish populations will have collapsed. Well, that's something to look forward to, isn't it? And who's responsible for that? We are, if we're not vegan. So since 1950, 29% of commercial fish species have suffered collapse, and this is accelerating, with over 75% of fisheries exploited and depleted today. Overfishing, in quotes, I put it in quotes because there's no such thing as overfishing. It's either fishing or it's not fishing. And it's killing or not killing. Habitat loss, overfishing, in quotes, habitat loss and pollution are driving numbers of most fish populations into faster and faster decline. If current trends continue, all commercial populations currently fished are predicted to collapse by 2048. I won't read out all the sources, but they have sources for all these particular this particular information. There's another one. There are over 4 million commercial fishing vessels in the world. That's a lot. So according to the FAO, the total number of fishing vessels in the world in 2014 was estimated at 4.6 million. And the source is the FAO of the United Nations, from the State of the World Fisheries and Aquaculture in 2016. So that's a lot, and you know, absolutely unsustainable and appalling when you think about what gets hauled up in these particular trawlers. The amount of aquatic animals. Over 55% of the world's reefs are threatened by overfishing. I'll put that in quotes. I don't like that word. And destructive fishing. Well, I think it's all destructive. Destructive. It's pretty destructive when you're suffocating to death when you're suffocating to death on a boat and you die of suffocation if you're a sentient animal. That's pretty destructive. Anyway, so over 55% of the world's reefs are threatened by quote-unquote overfishing and or destructive fishing. Some regions, such as Southeast Asia, are particularly threatened when nearly 95% of reefs are affected. Many of the world's remote coral reefs are heavily fished. In some places, the fishing methods themselves are destructive. Most notable is the use of explosives to kill or stun fish, which destroys coral in the process. Although illegal in many countries, blast or dynamite fishing remains a persistent threat, particularly in Southeast Asia and East Africa. Poison fishing is also destructive to corals, and that's from the World Resources Institute. So this is sad too. 300,000 dolphins and whales drown every year tangled in fishing gear. So that happens because we're not vegan. That's 300,000 dolphins and whales. Do you like my cup? It's a little, that's actually a very old dinosaur that had feathers, and there's a little anteater there and a little ant, and it says, we are here to awaken from our illusion of separateness. And it's got be vegan, and then my vegan podcast, howtogovegan.org, on the side. So I made that. I like doing things like that. It's good when people come over to have a cup of tea and they see vegan messages on cups. But anyway, I digress. So I'm going to read out the little spiel that goes along with this. Many fishing techniques and gear are not very selective and result in catching and discarding millions of tons of marine life that was not the target species, accounting for over 40% of the estimated total marine catch. This was International Whaling Commission. So that's 300,000 tangled and drowning in nets every year. 300,000. So that's like over 1,000, about 1,200 a day. 1,200 whales and dolphins are drowning as we speak in these nets. It's appalling. And so sad, you know. People always claim how much we love dolphins and whales. We fetishize them, and yet we keep on eating our animal products, our aquatic animals, and here there's, 1,200 or more a day being drowning and dying. So I'm going to read you something that they have about the actual problems with eating different aquatic animals due to our pollution of the world. So it says almost 70% of all chemicals developed since the Industrial Revolution are found in fish. That's 85,000 chemicals. Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. Talk about a chemical cocktail when you eat salmon and different things like that. So fish constitute the most polluted food we eat, with 85,000 of the 125,000 new chemicals developed since the Industrial Revolution found in fish bodies. It has been established that certain human demographics, pregnant and nursing women, and young children in particular, are advised to limit consumption of fish to avoid risk of exposure to mercury and other harmful chemicals. That's from the US EPA TSCA Chemical Substance Inventory. So this is all sourced information, and probably maybe even downplayed, because you know how the EPA is these days, particularly with the Trump administration. So no safe level for mercury in the human body has ever been determined. That's Dr. Jane Hightower. Methyl mercury accumulates in fish, shellfish, and sea animals, and biomagnifies in the aquatic food chain. The concentration of methyl mercury is greater in the predator than in its prey, and the mercury accumulation increases up the food chain. So that's also sourced. I won't read out all the names for that. These aren't sort of vegan sources. These are just, science-backed sources. Seagrass captures and stores carbon at a rate several times faster than rainforests. Well, that's something I didn't know. So seagrass meadows, along with, oh, and by the way, just a quick comment about that last, it's amazing that for a long time, they used to tell women, pregnant women to, eat fish because of omega-3s. I'm pretty sure it was pregnant women, but anyway, they're always telling people, eat fish for omega-3s. Well, where do you think fish get their omega-3s? They get it from eating plants. So why on earth are we eating the fish instead of just directly eating the plants that are where the omega-3s are from? I mean, I take an omega-3 supplement that's based on seaweed. It's much better for me, it's much better for the fish, and you bypass all this terrible pollution. Back to seagrass. Seagrass captures and stores carbon at a rate several times faster than rainforests. So seagrass meadows, along with salt marshes and mangroves, are amongst the most powerful carbon sinks in the world, more so than rainforests on land, despite their enormous socio-economic value. However, there are some of the most heavily used and threatened natural systems globally. 30% of seagrasses have been either lost or degraded worldwide in the past 50 years. That's really sad. Fish do not make omega-3s, microalgae do. Well, I've already covered this, but I'll quickly race through it. Fish do not make omega-3s, microalgae do. Fish have omega-3s because they're concentrated in their bodies from what they eat, much the same way they concentrate toxins such as PCBs and mercury. Healthy sources of omega-3s can be found in plant foods such as flaxseed, rape seeds, and walnuts. Some algae and the supplements made from them can provide the longer chain omega-3s found in oily fish without exposing us to harmful pollutants and without killing. Hooray! The global tuna industry is worth more than $42 billion. So that explains why they don't want to stop that. And of course, we're responsible if we're not vegan. Tuna populations around the world are crashing, with Pacific bluefin tuna dropping to only 2.6% of its historic numbers. Despite this, the Pacific bluefin is still not listed as endangered by NOAA, despite them acknowledging that there were only 1.6 million remaining in the ocean. Scarcity creates value, and with a global tuna industry worth $42 billion, there's a lot of commercial pressure from industry to continue plundering the species. The ocean equivalent to tigers on land, tuna are one of the largest apex predators, made for speed and built like torpedoes, diving more than 4,000 feet and migrating across oceans. They are integral to maintaining oceanic ecosystems, and their removal could result in unknown and possibly catastrophic consequences. Just 1% of the ocean's blue carbon ecosystems is equivalent to releasing 460 million tons of carbon annually. If we lost just 1% of the ocean's blue carbon ecosystems, it would be the equivalent to releasing 460 million tons of carbon annually, which is about the equivalent of about 97 million cars. That's Dr. Peter McCready. That's pretty startling. Most of the prey fish captured are fed to farm fishes and to pigs and chickens on factory farms in quote, and go largely unregulated. So most of the prey fish, in quotes, captured from the seas, for example anchovies or herrings, are fed not to humans but to farm fishes, pigs and chickens on factory farms. And I don't like that word factory farms because most animals are industrialized, their farming is industrialized. According to one analysis from 2000, it takes between 2 to 5 pounds of quote-unquote feed fish to make 1 pound of farmed carnivorous fish, such as salmon, sea bass, or bluefin tuna. Given the smaller size of the feed fishes, many individuals must be used to maintain the farmed species. So isn't that crazy? Here we are feeding fish to pigs and cows, etc., and then fish to fish. it's just, sorry, there's a few little mozzies around now. It's getting a little bit dark, but I'll continue until it gets too dark. I might have to do a part 2 to this because there's so much disastrous information on this site, which is all related to us being not vegan. So, you know, it's something that we need to face. We need to face if we're eating aquatic animals, then we need to realize what kind of damage we're participating in. So, a study conducted by the Institute of Ocean Conservation Science at Stony Brook University concluded that the decline of large predators in all regions of the world is causing substantial changes to marine ecosystems, claiming that the loss of apex consumers, quote, may be humankind's most pervasive influence on nature, end quote. We are removing the mechanisms by which ecosystems and food webs remain stable at an unprecedented rate and with unknown consequences. Trophic downgrading, the ecological consequences of losing large apex predators, causes negative cascading effects to complex ecosystems that are only exacerbated by factors such as habitat loss and pollution. And it has an image of somebody. It says, Seaspiracy behind the scenes shot of Lucy between filming on board a fishing trawler in the Atlantic Ocean. God, that must have been awful. I don't think I'll be able to see this. I don't know if I'll be able to watch this documentary because I can't even watch nature films anymore. It makes me too sad that animals are just being encroached upon so badly, and their habitats being destroyed, and we just keep doing it and doing it and doing it, and eventually we're going to take them all with us when we go extinct, which is looking most certain at this point, with 3 degrees on the cards as a baked into it. But I can find out this information without. I probably may eventually watch it. I'll have to get a report on it and see how awful it is, like how many animals are struggling for breath and struggling to get, you know, they're gasping for breath and all of that. You know, I have a lot of trouble with that kind of thing. It's getting pretty dark here, but I think I can. I'll go a little bit longer, and then I might have to make a part 2 in this. So this is a very startling one. I don't know if I've read this one out already, but abandoned fishing nets kill over 130,000 sea mammals every year. So that's pretty awful. According to the World Animal Protection, at least 136,000 seals, sea lions and large whales get killed by entanglement in, quote, ghost, end quote, fishing gear every year. And, quote, unquote, inestimable number of birds, turtles, fish and other species are also injured and killed in ghost fishing nets every year. So that's sort of, you know, we all wring our hands about the plastic and turtles' mouths and plastic wrapped around animals, and yes, that's terrible, but think of that number, 130,000 of those, of sea mammals, and then all the birds and whatever that we will never hear about. Okay, so there's so many images on here, I'm going to wind it up soon. So an estimated 80% of commercial fish species are gone. 80% of commercial fish species are gone. That's from the FAO in 2016. Aquatic animals are given very few legal protections compared to land animals. Well, land animals hardly have any protection because they're viewed as property. So aquatic animals, they can't really get lower than being viewed as property, can they? But they do, meaning they don't really care what happens to them at all. Not that land animals are cared about either. They're just property, and they have pretend welfare laws that sort of, if applied to humans, would be considered torture. But it says aquatic animals are given very few legal protections compared to their land-dwelling counterparts. There are no regulations for the treatment of the trillions of fish caught and killed every year. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. I'd like to continue, but I'm running out of light, and it's about 25 minutes into. So I'll continue on with this another day. And there's heaps of information on Seaspiracy. Seaspiracy. Oh my, it's getting very dark now. So anyway, I'll wrap it up, and I might even do some more inside and do a part 2. I'll do inside in the light, because there's some really excellent information on here. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. My name's Trish Roberts. Please subscribe if you like the content. Please click the notifications bell, otherwise you don't receive updates. And please click the like button if you like the content as well, and leave comments if you wish. Okay, thanks so much for watching. My name's Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. I'm getting very, very vague here, aren't I? Till next time. Bye for now.